So I would want to work at home. So I would want to welcome you to this year, the year 2024. This is a new year, and we have a lot of prospects of good things to come. As I had promised, we will be having our set book productions as we had started. You are aware that we have been dealing with Fathers of Nations, the Samaritan, and recently we started off on a silent song and other stories. And so far, so good. We have discussed two stories, and that is story number 1 and story number 2. And this morning, I would want to take you through the story number 3. That is a silent song by Leonard Kibera. This story comes from Kenya because Leonard is a Kenyan. So this is one of our own stories, and we believe that you're going to enjoy the presentation that I will be bringing forward to you. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a very painful story because if you read through the text, what you get is the idea or the theme of pain and suffering in life. And before we even begin, I would want to give an introduction. And in that introduction, I would want to read through the first 2 paragraphs so that you get to understand what the story is all about, because the first 2 paragraphs actually brings out the idea of pain and suffering even more and more prominently. So slowly, the youth groped towards the door of the hut. He crawled weakly on his knees and elbows. The pain in his spine and stomach rapidly gathered violence. Suddenly, sharp pangs from his navel tore into his body, and for one short tormenting moment, he was paralyzed. Then the pain disappeared. It vanished with the same savage fury of its onslaught. Left him cold with sweat, left no other mark really, as if it had never been there. But he knew it had only recoiled for another attack. Once more he gave up the fight, let go his chin and his forehead on the dirt of the flea-ridden floor. That is the first paragraph of this story, and it brings the story of pain. This is the story of Mbane. Mbane is crippled and at the same time is blind. So we are told that there is pain in his spine and stomach that rapidly gathers violence. So this is something that happens sporadically every now and again in his life when this pain comes and attacks him. So we are actually exposed to a situation of suffering, even from that paragraph, the first paragraph that we have read. Let me read through the second paragraph. He did not know what time it was, but he was hungry. Not that time ever mattered. In the gloom of his eternal night, such things as time, day, or beauty had no meaning. Flat and almost imperceptible, they were for him impossible and lay beyond the bitter limits of darkness. His world only responded to what he could feel and hear and run away from. For it seemed to Mbane now, as he slammed his youth in horror under the weight of closing death, that his short life had been one of retreat. Crawling away on his lameness, he tackled the world around him negatively and never hit back. So the second paragraph also begins with another problem of hunger. He is actually suffering a lot of pain in his deathbed, so to say, and again he's suffering hunger because we are told that he's hungry. And again we are told that things like light does not make sense to him because he is in an eternal night. Remember, I had given the background that he's blind, so that such things as day, such things as beauty have no meaning to Mbane at all because of the kind of suffering that is going through. So that is the kind of life. We are told that at some point he crawls away on his lameness. Then he tackles the world around him negatively and never hit back. So that is a kind of presentation that the writer has actually given us. So I've given two areas of pain. The pain that sporadically attacks him every now and again, the sharp pangs from his navel tearing into his body, and then he's paralyzed. That is the first case of pain. Then the second case of pain, he doesn't have a sense of time because day doesn't make any sense. Night doesn't make any sense because he's blind, and we are told that he lives in an eternal night. And also he's hungry. He's been kept in that house, of course, his brother Ezekiel, who brought him from the city, from the streets of the city to this hut that now becomes his home. But even in that kind of environment, he suffers hunger. So those are instances of suffering that I really wanted to bring to your attention as we continue to read this text. Now, even the sun and the heat of the sun doesn't make a lot of sense to him, because when you're blind, sometimes you don't respond to what you see, because there isn't that sense of sight for him. So what he feels is actually the heat that comes from the sun, but doesn't see the light itself. So that is a form of suffering. When you are in this world and you are unable to see whatever happens, then we believe that you are really suffering. So he is exposed to cold weather, that is at night, when the sun now recedes, and now we come to the cold night. And therefore, one of the things that happens is that he feels cold when he was at the streets at that particular time. And when the sun retreats, then Mbane would not be able to do what? To see or to behold light, because he is blind. And we are also told that at the streets there wasn't any shelter for him, and therefore he was also vulnerable to thieves. So you can see, you blind, you are unable to see, and when night comes or when night falls, you are again exposed to the ravages of the thieves. Mbane does not even know his age. That is part of suffering. You don't know your age. You don't know when you were born. We're only told that at one point he asked his brother Ezekiel how old he was, and the brother told him that he was 14. And that even depressed him more, because he believes that by the age of 14 could be his brother Ezekiel by that time might have been married. But for him, marriage does not make any sense. You wouldn't be able to fulfill his matrimonial dreams simply because of his status now. He's blind, and at the same time he's crippled and can only recede to that life of loneliness. He could only yearn, we are told in the text, importantly, beyond the reach of darkness and lameness. So he would only yearn to get married. He would only yearn, but his life is a life of darkness because he's blind. Mbane lives a life of self-pity. So that is it. And finally, as we continue, or as we conclude, we are told that he is completely disillusioned, so that Mbane does not see reason to believe even in God, because he is told that God is light. He is told that God actually is the beauty that we see. But for him, what does it make? It doesn't make any sense. He does not understand why God is said to be white. And he's got his reasons, because it does not make sense to a blind man whether something is got light or not. For him, he lives in a life of darkness. So as we continue, we are told that even the authority in the city actually frustrates him. While he was at the city, we know that he lived on the street, and the authority handled him carelessly. Anytime they would come, I wondered why they had not at one point actually taken him as part of the garbage that they needed to dispose of. So that is a kind of life that he's lived all his life. He is wondering why those people who are collecting garbage had not swept him away. He dreams of a day when his soul would become free. He dreams of that day that his soul would be free from all these forms of suffering, to free him from the day that his soul would free him from his body that smells of sweat, unwashed, except in the rain, which he could only feel. So sometimes when it rained, that is when he would actually feel that he was actually washing his body. So you can imagine the kind of life that Mbane is undergoing. That is one of the lives that no one would really want to live. Then finally, Mbane becomes calm. And when this happens, he smiles distantly. His strength wanes fast. Then there is no pain but weakness. Then his head jerked down to the bed. And that is his final life. He finally dies. So that is a breakdown of the life of Mbane. And I believe that this gives you a picture of pain and suffering. There will also be some other issues that we will want to discuss when it comes to this story. But for today, thank you very much for listening to the plot of this story. And I believe you enjoyed our plot. Remember, the main message in this story is pain and suffering. I am your presenter, Oyuga Z Omolo. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, kindly do so, because you have so much that we'd like to present to you. Have a great day.